Okay, folks, this is Mike again from Buccaneer, and in 5 minutes or less, order your pizza. Hint, there's no pizza, is free. We're going to get this little basic Rails 5 app. You can see that it is literally a Rails 5 app with a Docker file and a Docker Compose file. Up and running, good to go on our local machine. In, of course, a Docker container, you guessed it. So, really quick, let's just look at the anatomy of what we've done here that's different from a Rails app. Right off the bat, you'll notice we have a Docker file. Okay, the Docker file. Not particularly scary, right? It's pulling in Ruby 2.3.3, running your basic, Debian-based apt-get, Ubuntu-based apt-get stuff. You have to pull in the Node.js library because you have to. Creates a directory in the container. Again, shows where the gem file is, runs bundle install. Nothing super scary, right? So let's get out of there. Preferably without breaking the file. And let's look at the Docker compose.yaml. This is a little more, again, simple, but this is doing a lot of the work. So we have a version in, these are all YML files, by the way. We have a version 2, great. Services, under services, we have 2 entries. Database, which is a Postgres database in this case. Web, which is the actual Rails application. And you can see web, the command it runs is, Rails as Rails server. Define some ports, and it forces the web service to depend on the database service. Basically, your app needs a database. Nothing super scary there either. All right, let's keep moving. So now we have, again, our Rails application, our Docker file, our Docker Compose file. We can do a few things here. One little gotcha that might get you is that your config actually has to be a little different for your database in Docker, and I just want to show you that really quick. Because unfortunately, even if you have the database for Postgres running on your local machine, Docker, it's not in the container, right? So it doesn't know about it. So take a look. Again, I called it my app, so some of this will vary for you. But that is what your database.yaml would look like. It's just, pointing it to the Postgres reference in the container itself, rather than on your machine. Other than that, this is a stock Rails new application, right? So it's Rails new my app, right? That's it. So let's get back here and let's go. So good point. We have the database. What do we do next? Well, we need to add the database. But first, just for fun, let's go Docker Compose up. And what that's going to do is yell at us for not having the database. But if we scroll up, it works, right? It's exactly like running the Rails application. I mean, it's doing some Docker stuff too, but if you'll notice, if we take a look at these logs, we're seeing some familiar stuff if you're used to Rails, right? And what's the complaint here? Active record, no database. All right, so what do we do about that? Well, it's pretty simple. It's a pretty simple problem. Docker Compose run web rake db create. Now, again, you'll notice that rake db create is the Rails command for creating a database. What's happening is you have to prefix it with web because it is the web service in your Docker Compose file, right? So from there, actually, our thing should be running. So we can just go ahead into Chrome. We can try to go to Chrome, and we can see that, in fact, it is running. Yay, you are on Rails on localhost 3000. You've got to love that. You've got to love the quick setup. Obviously, you could get a little more complicated, right? I know many of you would like to do something perhaps with Redis, right? Again, that would just be adding another service. So no big deal there. You would be working with, you can work with really as many services as you like. Trying to get that in frame for you, sorry. So there you go. See, we're running on localhost 3000 because normally would, but we are running in a container. And what's happening behind the scenes when we run Docker Compose up is it's actually pulling in the specific containers for our dependencies. So in our case, it's just, Rails and really Postgres, right, is the one it's pulling. But again, you could have a larger system that has multiple containers, and that's where Docker Compose really shines, because you're setting up your entire system to be individual containers, right? Where you're pulling in the container for Postgres, you're pulling in the container for Redis, whatever it is you're doing, you can pull them all in pretty quickly and get up and running. And that's about it. I think we just about made our mark, maybe a little over. If you have more questions, hit me up in the comments or email Buccaneer Tech. Also, there's a link in the show notes here for a great guide on getting started with DevOps and Docker, particularly on persisting your application logs in Rails on Docker. Actually, fun fact, these methods will work even outside of Rails. They'll work for Java Play, they'll work for PHP, so give that a look. It's a totally free guide. You just got to fill out the form. Thank you so much for listening. Bye-bye now.